The late summer sun cast a golden haze over the rolling fields as Lily Morgan guided her truck down the dusty road leading to her ranch. Her father's old Stetson sat on the passenger seat, as it had for the past 2 years, a silent reminder of everything she was trying to hold together since he passed. Life hadn't been easy, not since she'd taken over the ranch. The cattle market was rough, the help was unreliable, and the weight of responsibility pressed harder with each passing month. Lily had long stopped expecting help. She knew better than to trust someone who said they were just passing through. That's why the man standing at the edge of her property set her nerves on edge. He stood next to the wooden fence with a saddle slung over one shoulder and a travel-worn duffel bag in the other. His jeans were dusty, boots worn, and his shirt rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms that looked like they knew real work. A wide-brimmed hat shaded most of his face. But Lily could still make out a sharp jawline and eyes that followed her truck like they'd been waiting for it. She pulled up and rolled down the window, keeping her tone cool. "You lost." "No, ma'am," he said, voice low and steady. "I was told you might be hiring." She arched an eyebrow. "By who?" "Old man at the diner. Said you could use a hand." "Said the last one walked out 2 weeks ago." That was true, not that she liked being reminded. "And you just happened to be wandering through. Looking for work." "I don't stay long, just enough to earn my keep, maybe fix up a fence or two, and be on my way." Lily studied him. There was something careful about the way he spoke. Not secretive. Exactly, just measured, like someone who'd learned to weigh his words before offering them. She sighed. "What's your name?" "Cade Walker." "Got any references?" "Cade Walker." "Only the horses and fences I've left behind." Lily almost smiled, but caught herself. "That's not as comforting as you think." "I understand." He looked her straight in the eye. "I'll work the week for free. If you're not satisfied, I move on." That caught her off guard. Men didn't usually offer free labor, not when they looked like they could earn a decent wage elsewhere. She glanced at the barn. The fence line still needed mending. The mare in the back pasture had a bad hoof, and the hay needed stacking before the weekend. She was tired. Bone tired. "All right," she said slowly. "1 week, you sleep in the bunkhouse, meals are your own responsibility. And if I catch you snooping where you don't belong, you're gone." "Fair enough." She pointed toward the barn. "Start by mucking stalls. If you're half as handy as you, look, I'll find more for you after that." He nodded once, then turned to walk toward the barn without another word. Lily watched him go. Something about him stirred her curiosity, and maybe a little unease. Cade Walker didn't move like a man who'd been drifting for no reason. He carried himself with a quiet confidence, like someone who'd left something behind but wasn't in a hurry to go back for it. That night, after the sun dipped below the horizon and the fields turned to shadow, Lily stood on her porch, with a mug of tea in her hands. She could see the faint glow of the bunkhouse light through the trees. Cade had worked the stalls without complaint, fixed a sagging gate, and hadn't said a word more than necessary. He was a man who knew how to keep to himself, and that was both reassuring and unsettling. Lily sipped her tea and exhaled. Slowly, she wasn't looking for trouble. She definitely wasn't looking for company. But something told her that Cade Walker wasn't going to be just another name in a long list of passing strangers. Something told her he might stay. And that was the part that scared her most? By the third day, Cade Walker had finished more work than Lily expected him to finish in a week. The broken fence near the north pasture had been mended with fresh posts and wire. The leaky pipe behind the barn no longer dripped. Even the old mare with the sore hoof had been gently cleaned up and wrapped without Lily needing to ask. Cade worked without complaint, without chatter, and most importantly, without making a mess of things like the last 2 hands who came and went. Still, Lily kept her distance. She was used to doing things alone. Her father had taught her early how to hold her own, in a world of cattle auctions, rusted machinery, and people who promised more than they delivered. And though the weight of the ranch often felt heavy on her shoulders, she carried it the only way she knew how, quietly and without help. But Cade wasn't offering help. Not exactly, he simply did the work like it was second nature, and he left the rest alone. One morning, Lily came out to the barn and found him brushing down the horses, the sun just peeking over the horizon. He worked in silence, soft murmurs to the gelding the only sound as he moved with calm, practiced hands. "You're up early," Lily said, stepping into the stall beside him. He gave a small nod. "Figured I'd get started before the heat kicked in." She leaned on the stall door. Most men don't offer that kind of thoughtfulness. especially not for free. Cade gave the brush a final stroke, then turned slightly. I'm not most men. Lily smiled despite herself. So I've noticed. A long pause followed. The morning air smelled of hay and dust. Outside, birds stirred in the trees, and a breeze tugged gently at the loose barn doors. You used to work a place like this? She asked. Cade looked back at the horse, adjusting the saddle. Yeah, long time ago, family place. Still running. He hesitated. No, Lily nodded. She didn't push. She recognized the kind of silence that held pain, not because someone was hiding something dark, but because talking about it reopened things that had already taken time to heal. That afternoon, while moving hay bales into the loft, Lily lost her footing on the ladder. She didn't fall far, just enough to twist her ankle and let out a short yelp of pain as she landed hard on the dusty barn floor. Cade was there in an instant. You all right? He asked, crouching beside her. I'm fine, she winced, trying to stand. Just twisted it. Sit. His voice was calm, but firm. Lily, surprisingly, obeyed. He gently removed her boot, examined the swelling ankle, and wrapped it with a clean cloth from his saddlebag. He worked quickly and without fuss, like someone who'd done this kind of thing before, and not just once. You've done this a lot, she muttered, watching his hands. Cade gave a faint shrug. You pick things up when you're on your own. Lily looked at him for a moment. You don't talk much, don't need to. She didn't argue with that. Later, she watched from the porch as he finished stacking the last of the bales. In the loft, his shirt clinging to his back in the afternoon heat. He didn't know she was watching, and she didn't know why she was. She hadn't trusted anyone in years, not really. Not since losing her father, and especially not since her last ranch hand ran off with a saddlebag full of tools and a month's pay. She'd sworn off kindness, generosity, and men who smiled to Isley, but Cade didn't smile much. He just showed up, did the work, and somehow made her feel like she wasn't quite as alone as she'd gotten used to feeling. That night, he sat across the yard near the fence line, staring up at the stars. Lily joined him, a mason jar of lemonade in each hand. She handed one to him, and for the first time, he smiled, just a little. They sat in silence, shoulder to shoulder but still apart, and Lily wondered, not for the first time, if this quiet cowboy passing through was hiding more than just a past. He might just be carrying the kind of strength she'd stopped believing in. The week passed faster than Lily expected. Each morning, Cade was up before dawn, already working by the time she reached the barn. By midweek, he'd fixed the back corral, helped patch the roof of the chicken coop, and found time to sharpen every tool in the shed without being asked. He was quiet, respectful, and always kept a careful distance, close enough to help, but far enough to leave room for trust to build on its own. But just as she started to believe he might not be another runaway looking for an escape, a black pickup truck rolled down her driveway and parked in the dust outside the barn. Cade stepped out of the stables at the same time Lily emerged from the house. The driver was a lean man with a long scar down his jaw and a look that didn't belong in a peaceful town. He climbed out slowly, eyes settling on Cade. Well, I'll be, the man said, voice rough like gravel. Didn't think I'd find you this far out? Lily stood still. Cade didn't speak. Thought you left this kind of life behind, Walker, the man went on. Then I hear you're shoveling manure for some widow on a rundown ranch. Cade's jaw tensed. Say what you came to say, Royce. Roy smirked, glancing at Lily. She know who you are. That's not your business. Funny, Royce said, stepping forward, because last time I saw you, you were walking out on everything you built, told the whole crew you were done. No goodbyes, no debts paid, just gone. Lily's eyes narrowed. Cade. He didn't look at her. This isn't the time. Oh, I think it is, Royce said. You can play the quiet cowboy all you want, but we both know what you walked away from. You don't just get to disappear. Cade stepped forward, standing between Lily and Royce. I paid for my mistakes. You want something more, we do it away from here. Royce lifted his hands. No trouble. Just wanted to remind you that shadows don't stay buried forever. He turned, climbed back into his truck, and drove off, tires spitting dust behind him. Lily stared at Cade, waiting. He didn't speak. Finally, she said, You want to tell me what that was? He turned to her, his face unreadable. Just a man from my past. That's not an answer. He looked down at his boots, then up at her with the kind of steady honesty she wasn't prepared for. I used to work in rodeo construction. set up rings, security, managed crews. The job came with a lot of money, long nights, and the wrong people. I walked away after one of our workers got seriously hurt because of a mistake I made. Lily crossed her arms. And you never looked back. I didn't think I deserved to. They stood in silence for a long moment, the wind stirring, the dry grass between them. You could have told me, she said quietly. I figured if I told you, I'd be gone by morning. She hesitated, then shook her head. I've known plenty of liars, Cade. You don't strike me as one. His voice softened. I didn't come here to run. I just wanted to work. Keep my head down, find a place that didn't ask questions. You found one, she said. But I don't like being left in the dark. I understand. Lily looked out toward the horizon, where the sun was beginning to set behind the hills. You were, right? You don't talk much. But when you do, you don't waste words. Cade gave a slow nod. Words matter. I just try to say the ones that count. They stood there for a while longer, the barn behind them and the past between them. Lily could have sent him away. A part of her still wasn't sure she wouldn't regret keeping him around. But the look in Cade's eyes wasn't the look of a man hiding from trouble. It was the look of a man who'd already lived through it, and carried the weight of it every day since. She finally said, "You've got 2 days left in your trial week." Cade raised an eyebrow. "And after that?" "That depends," she said. "On whether you still want to stay." His expression didn't change, but there was something different in his eyes. Something softer, almost hopeful. "I think I do," he said, and for the first time in a long time, Lily felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't wrong to believe in someone again. The weather turned by the weekend. Heavy clouds rolled in from the west, and the air grew thick with the scent of coming rain. Lily had grown up reading the skies. Her father used to say the wind spoke if you knew how to listen. By midday, she could feel it in her bones. A summer storm was on the way, and not the kind that passed gently. Cade sensed it too. He worked fast, eyes always scanning the sky, moving with a purpose that matched her own. They brought in the cattle early, tied down loose tarps, and checked the roof on the feed shed. Neither of them spoke much, but there was a kind of rhythm between them now, the kind that didn't need explaining. By late afternoon, the wind picked up, strong and unsteady. Lily had just finished locking the barn when she heard the distant crack of thunder. She turned to find Cade checking the far gate. His shirt clung to his back, damp from sweat and humidity. As he jogged back, she could see the determination in his face. "The creek's rising," he said. "We need to move the yearlings. That back pasture will flood if this storm hits like it's building." Lily didn't argue. They mounted up and rode hard, the sky darkening around them as they herded the restless calves to higher ground. Rain started falling just as they got the last one through the gate, sharp and cold, turning dirt into slippery mud. By the time they reached the barn again, both were soaked, hair plastered to their faces. Boots heavy with muck, lightning lit, up the hills behind them, followed by a sharp crack that made the horses whinny and stomp inside the barn. They stood for a moment, catching their breath. The storm was close now, wind howling through the rafters, rain pounding the roof. Lily looked over at Cade. "That was close." He gave a small smile. "You know your land." She nodded, brushing wet hair from her face. "I've spent my whole life on it. Learned the hard way not to ignore the signs." Thunder boomed again, and the lights flickered once, then died, leaving them in the dim glow of a lantern Cade had lit earlier. They sat down on overturned feed buckets, breathing in the smell of hay and rain. The quiet between them was different now, less guarded, more settled. "You never talk about your family," she said gently. Cade leaned back against a stall. "There's not much to say. Grew up on a ranch in Wyoming. Parents passed when I was 21. I tried to hold it all together, but I wasn't ready. I took the first job I could find that paid enough to cover the debts. That's how I ended up in the circuit." Lily nodded, listening. "I was good at it," he continued. "But the people I worked with, not all of them cared about the ones holding the tools. A guy got hurt. Real bad. It was my call that put him in the wrong spot. After that, I just walked. You blame yourself. I did for a long time. Maybe still do." Lily looked down at her hands. "I know something about blame. When my dad died, the ranch nearly folded. I thought I should have seen it coming, done more, been better prepared. But the truth is, some things fall apart, no matter how hard you try." Cade was quiet for a moment, "And yet here you are, still standing. So are you." They looked at each other through the stormlit shadows. For the first time, the walls between them didn't feel necessary. I don't know what's next, Kate admitted quietly, but I do know this place feels more like home than anywhere I've been in a long time. Lily's voice was soft. Maybe it could be, if you wanted it. Outside, the storm began to ease, the wind losing its edge, the rain slowing to a steady rhythm. Inside the barn, something had shifted. Not spoken aloud, not sealed with promises, but known. When they finally stood to leave, Cade paused at the door. I meant what I said before, he told her. I don't want to keep running. She met his gaze. Then don't, and for the first time since arriving, he let himself believe it was possible. The morning after the storm, the world looked new. Rain had washed the dust from the fields, and sunlight broke through the clouds like a promise. The earth smelled rich and alive, and the trees shook off the night's weight with a whispering breeze. Lily stepped onto the porch, coffee mug in hand, and looked across the land her father had spent his life tending. And there, by the barn, was Cade already at work, hammering new boards onto the gate that had broken in the wind. Just like always, as if he'd been there forever. She smiled quietly, and walked out to meet him. You don't rest much, do you? She said. Cade straightened, wiped his brow with the back of his hand, and grinned. Never saw much point in it. There's always something to fix. Lily nodded, then glanced down the road, where a familiar black truck was parked. She felt her breath hitch. Cade followed her gaze and stiffened. Royce stood by the gate, hands in his pockets. He didn't look threatening this time, more tired than anything. I told him I'd talk to him, Cade said softly. You sure? Yeah, I need to. Lily gave a short nod and stepped back, giving them space but staying within earshot. Royce leaned against the fence. Didn't come to cause trouble. I figured. Royce looked around. Nice place. Quiet. Peaceful. Not your usual style. Cade crossed his arms. Maybe I was overdue for a change. Royce sighed. Thought, you should know that situation back home. It's been cleaned up. You're not on anyone's radar anymore. You could have come back months ago. I didn't want to come back. Royce looked at him for a long moment. You really planning on staying out here? With her, I'm not planning anything, Cade said. I'm just done looking for something that was never mine. Royce nodded slowly. All right, then. Guess I'll stop chasing ghosts. He extended his hand, and after a pause, Cade shook it. As the truck drove away, Cade stood by the gate, motionless. Lily walked up beside him. It's over, she asked. Yeah, he said, his voice quiet. It is. They walked back toward the house, the wind rustling gently through the grass. After a while, Lily stopped. I need someone to help full-time, she said. The ranch is too much on my own, but I'm not offering charity. Cade, he looked at her, surprised. She held his gaze. I'm offering a place. If you want one. Cade's voice was soft. You sure? No, she admitted, smiling faintly. But I trust you, and that hasn't come easy. He nodded, stepping a little closer. Then maybe it's time I stopped drifting. They stood in the quiet morning, two people who had spent too long carrying things alone. Weeks passed, and Cade didn't leave. He built a new fence along the back ridge, cleared out the old shed, and even repaired the tractor Lily had half given up on. The town began to notice and accept that he wasn't just another passing face. He never talked much, but Lily didn't mind. The silence between them had changed. It was no longer filled with questions or suspicion. It was a space of shared peace, the kind you find when someone truly sees you and stays anyway. One warm evening, they sat on the porch watching the sun sink behind the hills. A dog Cade had found wandering the road lay at their feet. Chickens clucked softly in the coop. Everything felt settled. Lily turned to him. Ever miss the road? Cade shook his head. Not anymore. She smiled. Good, because I was thinking of painting the barn next week. He laughed, a rare quiet sound that made her heart lift. Then I guess I better stay, he said, and just like that, he did no grand gestures. No promises carved in stone, just a man who once had nowhere to be, finding the one place he could finally belong. And Lily, who once believed she had to carry the world alone, found someone who didn't try to take the weight from her, but walked beside her. Quietly, patiently, every step of the way. Asterisk.